Hey, what's going on, everybody? Happy Friday. Welcome to TGIK episode 103. I am so psyched to be back talking to you all today. Welcome, welcome. Martin from the Netherlands, welcome in. Maddie, welcome back. Rory, welcome back as well. Hopefully, if I say anyone's name wrong, feel free to correct me. Sarish from Hamburg, welcome, welcome. Peter from Sierra Nevada, Spain. Cool. Are the Sierra Nevadas in Spain kind of like the Sierra Nevada mountains in the States? Is it a mountainous place? Mike, Michigan. Welcome, welcome. Mozufer from Dubai. Welcome. Walid from Saudi. Welcome, welcome. Larry, Johannesburg. Awesome. Welcome, Larry. Glad to have you. Oliver. Hey, how you doing from France? Steve from good old VMware. Glad to see you, buddy. Tim, how's it going? And Keith from kind of Ireland. Welcome. Welcome, Keith. All right. Taylor. Hey, Taylor. Nice to see you. Taylor and I go back along with Steve to our Heptio days. And hey, welcome back, Joy from Richmond. What's going on, everybody? So if it's your first time joining us for TGIK, you are welcome to hop in the chat and say hey and where you're signing in from. Obviously, it's optional, but feel free to say hello if you're joining us for the first time or recurring. Yeah, let's get right into a little bit about some of the topic of this episode. So I will switch over here to that window. All right, and you don't need to see me. There we go. You want to see that. All right, cool. All right, everyone. So in episode 103, we are going to be taking a second look at Cilium, the container networking plugin for Kubernetes. So really, really psyched to look at this with you all. I've been, I guess you could say, following the Cilium project to some degree. You know, I'll admit the last time I really looked closely at it and played with it was probably when Chris did an episode on it. So if you all didn't know, Chris Nova did an episode, I think it was August 2018. So we'll put a link in the show notes to that, but also feel free to just, search it on YouTube if need be. So we'll be taking a second look because they've done a lot of cool stuff. All right. Who else we got joining us? Samir, welcome. All right. Walid. Okay, you put cool. Yeah. And Patrick, welcome from Prague. Awesome. Arnaud from France. Welcome. Glad to have you all. All right. And I was also told some folks from the Cilium group, people working on Cilium, might be joining us as well. So if we do have anyone from Cilium in the chat, feel free to call yourself out. That would be really cool. All right. So let's get into a little bit about the week in review. So again, those of you who might be a little bit newer, the first thing we kick these episodes off with is a bit of a review of what's going on in Kubernetes. So we'll roll through that first and then get through some content. So some core things just to be aware of, those of you contributing to the project. 118 is now in enhancement freeze. So just be advised if you were working on enhancements. Some information in that is in our HackMD as well. Really exciting. The schedule for KubeCon Cloud NativeCon has been published. So first off, I know a lot of work goes into writing CFPs, and I know it's pretty hard to get your CFP accepted. So if you wrote something up, good work. If you got in, I'd be curious, did anyone in chat by chance get a CFP accepted? Is anyone here going to be talking at KubeCon? That would be really cool. But regardless, great work for everyone who took time and energy to submit CFPs. Keep an eye out. I don't know if they're doing rejects this conference. I'm guessing they probably will, but that might be something to look into. Or maybe even, turning your CFP into like a blog post and sharing it with the Kubernetes community or something like that. Could be a really cool exercise to get that knowledge out there. Cool. And then last thing in core, etcd got some Jepsen results done. So if you're curious about what the results were, feel free to check this out. It seemed like some of the things were pretty good, but they did identify some issues like locking, some things around documentation. So really cool in-depth review. Check it out when you get a chance. Again, that's the etcd Jepsen results. Cool. And before we talk about ecosystem, let's see who else is joining us here. So I left off on, Joe from Cilium. Awesome, Joe. Thanks for joining us. And we've got Dan as well. Welcome, Dan. Really psyched to have you all here. Maddie, we already said Maddie, of course. Tim, welcome, Timmy. Glad to see you. Timmy's a teammate of mine. Sabin from Romania. Awesome. Welcome, welcome. All right. And George comes through with the Cloud Native Regex link. So if anybody did not have a CFP accepted, you should check that out. And hopefully we'll all get to meet up there and talk about some cool Kubernetes stuff. I submitted some CFPs, but they didn't get accepted. But good news is, if you haven't heard, Duffy's CFP got accepted, a host of this channel. So you should check that out. Maybe George or someone can put the link in. I haven't looked at what his talk is yet, but I know it got accepted, so I'm very, very stoked for him. All right, ecosystem. Let's talk about what's going on in the world of Kubernetes. There was an interesting post. I believe this one is from Grafana on GCP. Yeah, GCP persistent disk incident that snowballed into an outage. I'll let you kind of look this one through and read it, but give it some time and give it a little bit of your energy to kind of read and look through. There's kind of two things I want to say. One is it really speaks to the crux of the problem well, I think, and the resolution they came by, and how that leads into other things. But the second thing I wanted to say is, I really appreciate when companies or people come out and really talk about these types of stories with Kubernetes, because we all know running Kubernetes isn't always the easiest thing. So those who come out and kind of share these retros, it's extremely valuable for everyone. So thanks so much to the Grafana team for doing that. And what else do we got going on? A lighthearted one that I think is pretty hilarious. There's a dad jokes microservice. So if you're into really cheesy jokes and you need to test your cluster or your service, this could be your next container. So do check that out. It's pretty sweet. Cool. Alex, he has a post. I don't know if I'm saying his name right, but Alex Ellis has a post on building containers without Docker. Read through this one, really cool. He gets into some of the intricacies about, using standalone build kit. And I think he compares that in this post to Kaneko a little bit as well. Talks about some of the models like the build kit daemon, how it can run more securely, but also requires some additional things to be disabled, like app armor and so on. But he kind of goes through and shows how you can do all this kind of stuff. And I think he does it in a pretty succinct, cool way. So if you're looking at different ways to build containers, especially like in a multi-tenant kube cluster, this could be a really cool post for you to kind of check out and get some perspective on your options. All right. And then last thing, really cool blog here. And this is a blog that I think, if I remember George saying correctly, he kind of stumbled upon this blog. It's got this particular post is about implementing container runtime shims, but I remember George in particular saying that a lot of the posts on this blog are extremely well written and go pretty deep. So give this blog a check out. Maybe, I don't know if he has a subscribe link up here. Let's see if there's anything. But it might be worth kind of checking this out, and if you like the content, adding it to your favorites here. I'm trying to see where his name is. Let's see here. Let's go to about, just make sure we give him a call out. Ivan. Okay, Ivan. So check out Ivan's blog. It has some really cool stuff, and getting in the weeds, like implementing a container runtime shim, is no joke. So for those of you who wanna dive under the hood a bit, this could be a really cool blog for you to check out. All right, cool, everyone. All right, let's go ahead and check one more time. All right. Ian, welcome, Ian. Glad you're here from Minneapolis. Congratulations on getting your CFP accepted. That is super, super awesome. Ian and Duffy have given some killer talks in the past around kube security that will scare you, but are really, really educational and neat. So be sure to check those out if you haven't already. Cool. All right. Cool. All right. I think we got everyone so far. So let's go ahead and get right into it all. So there are 4 things that I am primarily psyched to learn about today. And like I said, I haven't looked at Cilium in a while. So we have some Cilium folks in chat. We're going to be playing around with these things and seeing if we can all learn about them together. So we'll make some mistakes and try to correct them, surely. So let's break down some of these 4 things, and I want to ask you all what you want to focus on first. So I'm attempting diagramming again. Let's see if we can do this. It's going to look like a 5-year-old. Actually, that's kind of insulting to 5-year-olds. It's going to look like a young child wrote this. But there's 4 key items that I want to talk about with you all. And this goes into some of the things that Cilium has done somewhat recently. One of those is the kube-proxy replacement. Okay. So this is one thing we're gonna talk a bit about, kube-proxy replacement. So there's a style in which you can deploy Cilium, as I understand it, that will completely replace kube-proxy. Another thing that we're gonna try to check out is the CRD backend feature set. So it seems like Cilium has followed a similar progression to a lot of CNI plugins, where they started with this model of using a key value store like etcd, and I think Cilium supported console back in the day. Maybe they still do, where you would use that key value store for configuration and various things. But it looks like they've got a more advanced answer for those who want to use a CRD backend, which is just a really fancy way of saying, hey, I am going to go in and use kind of the Kubernetes API server to do X, Y, and Z for configuration and other data. Also, something that I learned about at KubeCon in North America is Hubble, which appears to be a way to get information about what's going on the network layer of your containers and expose that graphically. So that is a really neat one as well that I'm psyched to look at with you all. And then lastly, I'm quite interested in checking out what their options are for CNI-chaining. So this is kind of an interesting one because, Cilium has an approach that I would argue can benefit a lot of container networking solutions. So even if you're running, AWS's CNI plugin, or if you're running Weave or Calico, theoretically, you might want to take advantage of some of those benefits, like the ability to use BPF to resolve services you should route to, or their network policy model and things like that. So I think the premise, as I understand it, and obviously can't spell it, is to give you the ability to chaining. You'd be amazed how hard it is to write when you know people are watching you. CNI-chaining would be like the idea of running Cilium alongside of one of those other CNI plugins and having it do some of the cool work that it's capable of doing. So that is really exciting. All right, so here's what I want you all to help me do. Let's figure out which of these things we should look at first, kind of the order, if you will. So the kube-proxy replacement, and the CRD backend, I'm going to group those together because I think if we deploy Cilium, we might as well do it with the kube-proxy replacement and the CRD backend kind of together. Then there's Hubble, which is that, again, kind of visual layer and troubleshooting layer. And then there's CNI-chaining. So what I want from you, chat, could you tell me which of these three options you're most interested in? So if you could type in chat A, B, or C, I will prioritize what we look at first. So that's A, B, or C. And while that's catching up with the chat and video, I'm going to look in the chat, see if we missed anything. Dan validated. Yep, supports etcd and console key value stores, but you can use CRD as your backend method. Cool. So we'll get deeper into that, Dan. Maybe you can help us out understand some of the trade-offs with the different directions. Alex is from North Carolina. Cool. All right, some votes are coming in. C sounds cool. Curious how you got debugging CNI chaining configs. Cool, Maddie. Makes sense to me. Okay, Larry, you put a couple A's in. I dig that. Couple votes. Okay, so I think the trend is, and I'm kind of into this because I think it will give us a good flow. Okay, we'll start with A, which will be kind of deploying Calico in this kube-proxy replaced mode and using the CRD backend. On top of that, we're gonna then try to set up Hubble if we can. And then do some CNI chaining as well. What do you say? Does that sound good, everyone? Let's go ahead and get right into it. All right. So, some funny things that I kind of want to preface this with as I was looking through, how some of these different things are set up. The first thing that I knew we would need for today is machines that we can use. So I took a picture of the lab that's going to be running our workloads today, and I thought you all would get a kick out of looking at that real quick. So this is the machine that is running this very advanced setup today, and I just want you all to quickly appreciate how elegant my home lab setup is. Right here you can see the R720 that we're going to be using the VMs on top of. We've got a backup KVM server right here, right? And in particular, you'll notice how good the cable management is, right? It's pretty amazing. And in particular, you might also notice how amazing the power system is as well. So I'm being sarcastic. If we lose our servers today, we'll know why, because my home lab is a mess. But across from us right now is where we're going to be running all this good stuff. So I hope you can appreciate the chaos that is my lab that we're going to be running on. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the kube-proxy pieces. Okay, so all right. What I'm going to do to kind of show off the kube-proxy bits is I've got a cluster deployed right now. So I don't have a Cilium cluster deployed per se, but I have a cluster running Calico as an example, right? Not focusing on Calico, but just to show kind of what the default kube-proxy modes would look like. And I think the important things for us to keep in mind with kube-proxy, for those of us who are getting into this stuff, is that kube-proxy, right? So kube-proxy has two modes, or actually let's talk about the concerns kube-proxy handles. So for the most part, kube-proxy is focused on letting us do services, right? So we know that when we go in and we request an IP address, if it's like a cluster IP, that's usually going to have a bunch of pods backing that IP address. And kube-proxy implements these services typically with two different modes. One of those is IP tables, okay? And then one of those is IPVS. All right. Now, to kind of show you all a quick cluster of this setup here, let's go to my Calico cluster, and I'll zoom in here to try to make it a little bit less obnoxious. So let's exit out of some of these windows. I was literally just setting up these clusters before we started here. So get rid of these. Good. Okay, that should be good. All right, so let's see if I've still got my IP tables command here. All right, cool. So that should be the first one. Okay, so I'm running a cluster that you all see right here that is running Calico as a CNI, but actually Calico's got nothing to do with this. For the most part, what you should know is that this cluster is running kube-proxy, which as I've added services to my cluster, it has gone in, and it's just in the default IP tables mode, it's gone in and written a bunch of rules to my host. So this is one of the workers, worker 0, and it's written rules to this host, right? So you can see all these different rules inside of here. Now, at the expense of it being harder for you to read, I'm going to pull these back a little bit, and I can see some interesting ones. Like, let's find core DNS, since that's a really common one. So core DNS. Which would be under kubedns. Where's the service at? So there it is. Okay, cool. So this is arguably the service that core DNS is running under, more or less, right? And in this cluster, I'm running it highly available to a degree, which means I have two instances running. So kube-proxy has written these rules in place, and you can see they're for UDP because it's DNS and I'm running in UDP mode by default. If I run that same command again, and I ask for the chain that I know is associated with the kubedns service, I can hit enter there. All right. And then you'll see these two rules inside of the IP table. So it's gone in and it's written, I guess, I don't know what the SCP stands for. Someone in chat might know, but it's written these two different rules that basically represent the backend pods. And you can actually see how one of these says, hey, statistical probability 1/2, which those of you who know IP tables with kube-proxy, generally, you're going to always be using a system where it's like a round robin type thing. So your ability to do more advanced load balancing is somewhat limited usually. Nonetheless, let's take a look at this chain. So I should see two different IPs behind here, right? So if I go back and I clear this one out, we've got, all right, here we go. So we've got one IP of a core DNS pod 1040, which I am comfortable that that's the IP because I set up the pod network. And then in the other one, of course, we should have our other option, which is inside of here too. Cool. All right. And there we go. So we got 65 and 66 as the IP. So that's what IP tables is using for kind of the service endpoint. All right. So what does this mean in regards to Cilium? So we're going to deploy Cilium into this cluster right here. But why did I just show you the IP tables perspective first? Well, an individual at Cilium gave a really great presentation at KubeCon, and I'm going to steal one of his slides. Let me give him a quick shout out because I thought his presentation was excellent. Martinez gave a talk, and it's in our references if you get a chance to check it out. It's about pulling kube-proxy out of Kubernetes. So please check out his talk. But one of the most, I think, compelling arguments he made was he kind of showed the packet flow of something that's moving through all of these different the service flow, more or less, the kinds of things that I effectively just showed you. So, I'm gonna leave it an exercise to the reader in regards to when or the listener, when IP tables is a problem, or if it is even a problem for you. There's numbers that show certain implications at scale. There's issues about how it writes when it needs to change and things like that. But all of that aside, I think this tells a pretty good story, because what we're going to be doing with Cilium, deploying it into a kube-proxy or a kube-proxy off mode or a non-kube-proxy mode, is we're going to take this flow that you see here, and using another one of his slides, we're going to change it and simplify it using this thing called BPF that Cilium leverages. So long story short, it's going to go through and be able to kind of look up in a map, more or less, based on analyzing the packet or knowing what it needs, more or less, where it needs to send that thing to. So this is a pretty cool, clean thing. And let's see if we can actually take these slides and show them in reality to some degree. So let's go ahead and get into it with deploying. All right. Just check in chat, see if there's any questions. All right. Kudos for using bare metal. Oh, George, I'm sorry to tell you, but the KVM server is kind of bare metal. Well, no, it's not. It's all VMs. I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. Always disappointing out here. It's VMs on top of those hosts. Anywho, all right, let's get into some of the Cilium docs and look at what the deployment looks like here. So I have it bookmarked. I think I do. Kube-proxy. Okay, there it is. All right. So I took a little bit of a look at the docs last night to just save us some time, and also wanted to make sure the VMs would be compatible. Probably the first gotcha that I found with running in this mode, it's probably called out somewhere here. Maybe not. But just to make anyone aware who's watching this video in the future, one of the things that I ran into was that, let's see here. So I have it in errors, I think. It seems like in order to use the mode without kube-proxy, you do need a slightly newer kernel than I think Cilium requires without this kube-proxy thing turned off. So Cilium folks, feel free to tell people if I'm lying, but I do think to run this at least today, you maybe need a kernel higher than 4.17. So I'm glad I checked that last night, or else all of our VMs would be no good without fixing the kernel. All right, so we've got that in place. Let's go ahead and see if we can get this deployed. All right, so we'll go back to cluster 2. All right, cool. All right, so let's get this thing running. All right, so inside of the Cilium documentation, their recommendation is to grab, it looks like the Cilium tarball from here and go into the Cilium directory, which we will do. And then it looks like they have a Helm template that we can run. So that's perfect. Let's go ahead and make sure I'm in the right cluster to start off here. And give me a second, everyone, while I clean up my interface just a smidge. Okay, there we go. All right, we're back out. So episodes 103. Good. Okay, so Cilium wants us to run that download. So let's go ahead and start off with that, and I'll check the chat too. Cilium will be installed as a plugin for kube-proxy and kube-proxy instead of IP tables for packet filtering. Okay, I think you're asking the Cilium folks that. I'm guessing it will remain a standalone replacement, but I'm not super close to SIG networking, so I don't know. Base support is 4.9 plus, and then host base LB is 4.19 or okay. Thanks for validating that, Joe. So to Joe's point, just be aware your kernel will have to be a little bit newer. So what I did last night, I think I was on a Ubuntu 18 something, and I just bumped to Ubuntu 19, which wasn't a big deal, but luckily you don't have to watch me download VMs right now. So that's a good sanity saver for all of us. All right, so we've got this downloaded. That all makes sense. Let's go in. Let's see, they wanted me, okay, I'm in their directory and they want me to run this Helm command to produce a Cilium YAML. So let's go ahead and produce that real quick. and we'll take a look at it because, we're good Kubernetes users. We don't just deploy things off the internet, right? So let's see. I've got Cilium here. Let's open it up. Cilium. Okay. Cool. So make note of these things too, because I'm sure if there's like a Cilium reference out there that just uses like a quick install method, it probably, or like a default method, it might not have you do these Helm steps. So let's keep in mind that we changed something called node port. The services hosts were set as well. So let's check out what this YAML looks like real quick. All right. So what do we got going on here, everyone? Okay. So identity allocation mode is CRD. So I'm guessing this impacts the key value mode to some degree, Cilium people. Is that correct? Let me know if I'm wrong there. We're going to be using IPv4. That makes sense. Monitor aggregation mode. When we get to our demo on kind of the monitoring or observability piece, I know that this is important to some degree. Oh, cool. Okay, here's something to take a quick look at. So it looks like Cilium will run in 3 different modes. So 2 of these modes are encapsulated modes. So the 2 at the bottom, VXLAN and Geneve, these are going to be kind of like tunneling based protocols where it will encapsulate the packet. So that's kind of cool, especially like the nice thing about VXLAN is it kind of gives you like this extended L2-ish network thingy. So that's kind of neat. But what's awesome is it looks like they have a disabled mode too, which I'm guessing would just do direct or native routing, which probably means that they're not encapsulating things. They're probably just sending them across the hosts without encapsulation. So that's kind of cool. One interesting thing for the Cilium people on the call, I wonder if this is a common use case, but one mode that I've seen that's kind of compelling is to like combined an amount of encapsulation and non-encapsulation, meaning like, a lot of times you might only need encapsulation across subnets. So like intra-subnet communication, you can use kind of the raw methodology or the direct methodology so that it doesn't take the encapsulation overhead on, but still can encapsulate when, traversing a subnet where there might be a router you don't have control over. I wonder if that's a use case that ever comes up. I found that to be kind of a cool model. Okay, so our cluster name's default. That all makes good and well. BPF mount, node port. Okay, so it's interesting that it's called node port, but I'm guessing that this is what's making sure the cluster is going to run in the non-kube-proxy mode. It seems like that's probably the setting. And then I know there was also the IP address somewhere. Let's see if we can find that. What was it called again? It was a Kubernetes somewhere in here. I think it was our IP address. Oh, you know what it was? It was the API server and port, which I don't have the cluster fully deployed yet. So let's be sure to start there. That probably would help us from getting in a mess. All right, so here's the deal real quick, everyone, just to bring us back. So I have got 3 nodes inside of this cluster. Let me make sure I've got the cluster right. So this cluster is 2021. Cool. So we'll SSH into 192, SSH here, 192.2020, which should be master. That's perfect. All right, and I don't think I have Kubernetes deployed. Great. Okay, cool. So let's take a step back. We'll come back to that in a moment. Let's make sure Kubernetes actually exists, because that would be a critical piece of the puzzle here. So they think they had the flag, which will say, perfect. Thank you, Cilium. Saving me time. One thing that I got to give Cilium props for is their documentation's pretty good. I've been pretty impressed rolling through it. I won't say it's flawless. I don't think anyone's is flawless, but it definitely has been pretty cool to check out and understand. Okay, so the pod network here probably needs to be the same as my pod network. So before we run this command, it would probably be wise if we check in etc Kubernetes manifests to look for the kube controller manager, which won't exist because I haven't run this yet. Right, sorry. I'm getting my steps mixed up. So this pod just needs to be consistent with what I deploy. Or maybe Cilium will auto-detect my pod CIDR. I know with Calico, I usually need to put it in, so that would be kind of a cool thing if it did that. All right, so 10.217. I don't think that conflicts with anything. We'll see what happens. Okay. Shorthand S flag. Oops, I messed up the flag there. What was the flag? It was skip phases. One more dash. My bad. All right, lovely. So we have a Kubernetes cluster creating thanks to kubeadmin. It will be pretty quick and easy. I wanted to have cluster API set up to show this stuff off, but I didn't have enough time, unfortunately. But kubeadmin still works really, really well. So we'll just roll with that. All right, so my 2 worker nodes are in the bottom. We will join these 2 worker nodes, and we will see how Cilium deploys. And we'll check chat. So Dan verified that CRD is the default backend. That is good. Cilium in this mode for kube-proxy replacement is a drop-in replacement. Yep, that makes sense, Joe. Dan, yes, disabled sends packets to the Linux stack. Okay, cool. Makes sense to me. Are labels transported in IP? Cool. I think you got that answered lower, Alex. Cool. All right. Oh, great. Thanks for answering all these questions, folks. It's awesome. All right, cool. So we've got a cluster. Let's go ahead and grab the configuration for the cluster so I have it locally and can run kubectl commands. And then let's go ahead and join our other nodes using this. So we're just going to do a 1-node master, 2-node worker cluster here and see how that goes. All right, cool. So we'll join those up and get Cilium deployed. So while we're waiting for that, actually, let me see if I can pull up the Cilium blog post for 1.6. I seem to remember a graphic around this back end. Was it in here? Maybe it's in the docs somewhere. Now this is the Hubble announcement. Where's the 1.6 announcement? I'm in the blog. Oh, okay, I'm looking at all the blog posts. That makes sense. Oh, this is what I was looking for. Cool. Okay, so looking at this. Cool. So as it was either Joe or Dan verified for us, you still can use a dedicated key value store like etcd or console. So I have this issue with etcd for CNI plugins usually, and it's not because there's anything wrong with using etcd for CNI plugins, but I ran into this thing with providers who allow you to use etcd, where a lot of companies were using their Kubernetes etcd cluster as their CNI's key value store, which, to a degree, it's possible to do that and might not be an issue for you, but I've happened to seen it be a massive issue. When an update to a CNI came out, I won't say what provider this particular one was, it pushed a bunch of changes into etcd, which then lowered the read-write speed and impacted the whole cluster. So I'm guessing Cilium's probably recommending you use an external store anyways, but I love the CRD approach, primarily because it gives you a really easy on-ramp to using a plugin like Cilium. Like, as you noticed, I'm just going to deploy a YAML. I'm not going to be like setting up a key value store, configuring it, right? But it seems like a lot of times when these do get introduced initially, there's usually some amount of scaling concerns. Let's see if there's anything about scale. I remember reading something about like 250 nodes or something like that. We'll see if we can find that later. But basically what it means is when it's relying on the API server, sometimes it's not as scalable as relying on like a dedicated key value store. So it looks like Cilium maybe has a even kind of an intermediary mode where they'll use etcd for some things and then the CRD store for others. I'm curious if over time, Cilium people can answer this, if you see yourselves finding ways to make the CRD-based store more scalable, to make it kind of like the simple preferred option for all use cases, or if there's just always going to be use cases where a dedicated key value store makes sense. All right, we got a cluster here, everyone. Master, worker. Let's deploy Cilium. So before I completely blow up my environment, I think what would probably be wise is let's go ahead and open up one more of these windows. We'll do an SSH inside of here. Okay, so we'll keep our masters and workers down here in the bottom just so you all can see them as we kind of look through stuff. And let's go back to where we generated that Cilium YAML, and let's get rid of that because I'm guessing Helm did not have access to my cluster details, which worries me that I messed up my my deployment YAML there a second ago. Another thing that I should probably do, if we just do a quick kubectl get nodes, let's make sure kubectl's working. Okay, so we've got 3 nodes there, right? Looking good. We got a master and we've got 2 workers. That is exactly what we want. So now if we go in and let's get that config from my host. So I'll SCP that over. Of course, I don't have a really simple, quick one available, but that's okay. We'll work with what we got. So this is 2020. This will be home home Ubuntu kube. So what I'm doing here, everyone, is just copying over my kube config file. So home Ubuntu kube, that all looks good. Cool. And then we will copy that into kube. Let's call it Cilium 2. All right, so this will be kube config, actually. All right, that seems okay. Good. Okay, so we'll export and we'll go to Cilium 2. I know there's a context switcher for Kubernetes, by the way. I just can never figure out how contexts work. That's my confession for the day. I can't make Kubernetes context works for the life of me. I have no idea why. I've never been able to do it. So I always use exports instead. So we'll get nodes. Let's make sure we've got the right cluster. Okay, so I'm on my host here with the pink bar, and I am using the different, looking at the cluster in the same way. So this means, if I'm correct, I should be able to go and run Helm again, which was effectively this command. Cool. So now I'm thinking the API server IP and port will show up. So we'll go in there to Cilium. Looks good. All right, cool. So we went through most of this already. I won't bore you with it. Let's see if we can find that IP address, though. Kube IP. We'll just scroll through. Okay, kube IP. Did it propagate to my... Oh, actually, I know what my IP address is. Why don't I just search for 192? Huh, I didn't see the kube IP. I would have expected that it would have gotten that. Let me just make sure. Kate service host. I'm guessing that Helm's asking for that. It wants it somewhere. Let's see here. So I did that. Join. Went in. Helm. Okay. Looks good to me. I'm just surprised that nothing got written for the IP and port. Next, generate the YAML files. Replace API server and port with the control. Okay, so maybe I don't actually know Helm that well either. I'm gonna give you another confession. Don't hate me, but maybe I need to actually put in my static IP and port here. That might be what my problem is. Yeah, let's make sure we do that, because if Helm needs this, I have a hard time believing that it's not important. So let's do 192.168.2020, and then let's do the port here, which I think the default port is 6443. So let's, that looks good. Yeah, 202 seems okay to me. Let's run Helm again. All right, now do we actually have an IP address? 192. There it is. Okay, now here's an interesting thought, everybody, right? Because this is why I was thinking, I was thinking what they might be using this for. And can anyone in chat guess, why do you think we need to put the Kubernetes service host and service port in? Shouldn't we just be able to use the service IP that kind of comes implicitly with Kubernetes? You know, when you do kubectl get service in the default namespace, it has the IP for like the API server. Why would we need to tell it about the host and port for our API server? Any thoughts? There's a delay in chat, so I won't wait too long. But I'm thinking the reason we have to specify this is because we don't have kube-proxy. So on a theoretical level, I don't think that the IP table rules got written for the kube API server service. So I'm guessing Cilium in this mode probably needs to know where your API server is, because you can't rely on that same construct anymore. Again, that's my guess. Feel free to correct me. So let's go ahead and apply this here, and let's see what happens. So we'll clear this out. We'll do a kubectl apply Cilium. All right, moment of truth, everyone. What do you think? Is it going to work on the first try? Kube system. Let's set up a watch here. Oops. Let's make sure we're exported. Remember, don't know how contexts work. All right, cool. All right, everyone, here we go. Let's see what happens. Applied. All right, we got some Cilium stuff. That's good news. That's good news. It's a knitting. Well, if we get this first try, I will be blown away. All right, let's give it a sec to init here, and I'll look at chat. Cool. Wow, there's so much chat activity. You all are awesome. Thank you. All variables, glad. Oh, Josh, you have problems with context too. It must be a Josh thing. That's got to be what it is. Yeah, Maddie, I've checked it out. I still can't figure it out. I don't know why. I always malform and mess up my context. I'll try to pay Duffy off and have him do a TGIK on cube context. At least I need a personal lesson on it. That's for sure. Okay, because we normally rock. Oh, Mike, you're right. You got it. Killer. Oh boy, everyone. I don't know if we should believe our eyes, but I'm pretty sure that Cilium is starting. Okay, let's see what we got here. So we've got one more left to go. Oh, hey, look at that. Claps in the chat there. Awesome, we got it. All right, so Cilium is theoretically running. Now, what's cool about this is we should be able to prove based on our old cluster that the kube-proxy thing isn't doing anything ideally, right? So let's see if we can prove that. Actually, this would not be a good one to prove it in. Let's go to the worker node and let's just look at a couple things, okay? So first things first, IP tables. Let's just look at the list here. So there might be some default stuff it still has in rules here. Yeah, but I don't see anything that's actually substantial. So it's got just a couple things in here. That all makes sense to me. So it looks like, as far as I can tell, it's not using IP tables. To give you another example of that, in our other cluster, in the Calico cluster here, if I do a quick IP tables L, you can see a lot more going on with IP tables, right? Now, Calico does some fancy stuff to actually make IP tables more performant in the way that they use it. Normally, I think IP tables has like an ON type complexity, but I'm pretty sure how Calico implements it, they get it closer to like something more reasonable. Nonetheless, you can see all the rules that a normal plugin would normally put in here. And then you could see, going back to Cilium, wherever it was, we've got not too much. So that's really, really cool. Awesome. All right, sweet. So we've got Cilium installed. What's next? Let's see, what else do we have going on here? So it doesn't seem like there's any IP tables. Let's look at the route table, because that'll be kind of interesting. All right, cool. So yeah, looks like we've got kind of a pretty normal setup. There's probably a route entry for each pod citer in here. And remember, I'm running in VXLAN mode, so there should be a VXLAN interface in here somewhere. If we go into the IP tables, Cilium VXLAN. Okay, so I'm going to be kind of encapsulating my traffic and sending it all around my different nodes. So that's pretty cool. And we're running in the CRD backend, it seems. So let's go ahead and we're going to run a little tool to kind of take a look at all the stuff it created called Octant. Shameless plug, it is a VMware tool, but it works really, really well. So let's go ahead and get Octant up and running. So Octant, cool. Pulling us up here. Let's see what Cilium made for us. So first thing I usually do when I go to these CRD backend things is I usually look in the custom resources. It looks like we've got, oh, cool, sweet. So we've got a custom resource for each one of the nodes, which is great. If I go into one of the nodes, perfect. Okay, cool. So I've got an idea for what this node's IP address is. I love that. So just using kubectl and querying for CRDs, I can find this. And then I've also got the IP for Cilium, what Cilium's internal IP is. So I'm guessing that's maybe the interface we were looking at. And then the pod citer. So this is perfect. I can look up what Cilium thinks each of my nodes are, figure out what the IP is, what the range is, all that good stuff. So this is a great CRD for me to reference. And I don't see any other CRDs out of the gate. So that sounds pretty good. It looks like we had, let me go to the right namespace actually. That would be extremely important. Cool, we're in Cube System. Okay, there's a Cilium endpoint. Oh, awesome. Okay, great. Another great use of a CRD, right? So I've got an endpoint CRD for each. In this case, I've only got core DNS installed, but it represents the IP of these. So it's really easy to go in through Cilium and be like, yeah, what does Cilium think the IP is for this particular thing? So I can click on core DNS, get some details about it. BPF, okay. Policy, okay. Ooh, sweet. This is cool. I don't know yet. We'll figure out in a second, but maybe this tells you whether you have ingress or egress policy that's impacting this endpoint. And then I don't know what that curly brace is, but maybe they'll show us the policy affecting it. I don't know. But nonetheless, that's really cool to be able to see that inside of the CRD. So, okay, sweet. That all looks really cool and really good. All right. So we've got all of that set up. Let's deploy some stuff and see how it impacts the cluster. So I have some workloads ready for us. Let's see if Cilium can handle my super intense Nginx workloads. All right, so here's the deal. We've got, where did I put these things? Manifest, okay, great. So inside of manifest, we have got the workloads. Cool. All right, great. So let's deploy some stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and apply 2 pods. One of those is called Team A. I'll show you what these have in a second. Just let me get them deployed so you don't have to wait for me. Team B YAML. So Team A, Team B, they're basically 2 workloads. Just to show you Team A real quick, it's nothing special. Basically, I have a pod running Nginx where I installed some stuff into the Nginx image. And then I've got a service on top of it. So this will be cool because what we want to figure out here is like, we know the IP tables thing isn't there anymore. How do we see from Cilium's perspective now what the service is pointed to, right? That'll be a really cool test for us. And then I've also got a policy, but before we do the policy, let's see what impact maybe like the service had inside of here. So we'll go in and first off, just do a kubectl get pods for the namespace org1, which was the namespace that was in, and then kubectl gets pods for org2. Okay, great. So these are pretty much identical. We've got Team A that runs that Nginx image in namespace org1, and then the same thing for org2. So that's all fine and well. Cool. So if we just test this out real quick, we'll go into namespace org1. Oh, I still have these in my history. That's awesome. Okay, Team A. All right, cool. So if I curl from Team A to the endpoint in Team B, which I should be able to call the service, but I can't remember the exact notation now because it's escaping me. Someone can put it in chat if they remember, but for now I'll just do kubectl get pods. Actually, let's get service for the namespace org2. So there's actually like an inherent DNS record that would be available in core DNS. I just can't remember the syntax off my hand. It's like podname.svc.namespace or something like that. But this is the cluster IP, which should be equivalent. I'll exec in one more time, and let's just make sure traffic routes. Great. All right, that's exactly what we need, right? So, oh, awesome. Service.namespace. Perfect. Thanks for that. So we're calling traffic back and forth. So apparently Cilium has set up IPs. Let's go back to Octant and see if there's anything different that's going on here. So inside of Cilium endpoints, oh yeah, got to stop forgetting to get into the different namespaces. Okay, great. So now I've got a Cilium endpoint for Team A. That seems good. Oh, this is cool too. So ingress enforcement and egress enforcement is false. So that's exactly what I want to know, right? Like if I can't tell you how many times I've been with customers and they're like, I can't get traffic into my pod. And, we spend hours trying to figure out what's wrong with their code, what's wrong with their pod, what's wrong with whatever. And sure enough, the entire time they had a network policy that they had forgotten about. It drives me crazy. So this little sanity check here is fantastic. Is there egress or ingress actually on that endpoint? Now, how about the service itself? So this is where it gets interesting, right? If I want to get on the host and look at the service, now I would think without like something like Hubble installed or without going into CRDs, I'm guessing I could look it up in BPF. So that probably means, let me SSH back into that. So that probably means if I go into a worker real quick, I know Cilium has just like their command line utility, although I'm not entirely certain where to get it. So what I could do is if I just pull up my Docker images, we're gonna hack our way into this real quick in a very non-elegant way. Let's pull the Cilium binary. Cilium pod. Ooh, Dan, you can kube exec into the Cilium pod and get the Cilium CLI. Okay, cool. Because I was about to go in and copy the binary out of the container. So I'm glad that you gave me that call. And let's also look at Joe's way too, because it's probably the most, or actually Cilium service list. Okay, so Joe, that's the command. And then Dan, to your point, I don't have to copy that binary. Why don't I just exec into the pod, right? So let's do exactly that. That's perfect. So if I do a kubectl get pods for the namespace kube system, we'll put it wide so we know what nodes it's running on. Let's look at this real quick. So, all right, so Cilium on worker 1, that should be this one right here. And then I've got Cilium TXWDB. Perfect. Okay, let's copy that out. And then let's go ahead and exec into the namespace kube system. Do y'all have bin bash inside of your image? Cilium, kube system, Cilium, bin bash. Does that look right? Ah, there we go. Cool. Yeah. So to Dan's point, whatever I'm going to be looking in now theoretically should be whatever it looks up through BPF on this host, right? Dan and others can give some insight, but there's something about like, usually you mount the BPF file system. I don't think I have my host mounted, but I think they're doing something to maybe prevent me from doing that. Although I think you still need to do that in production or something. Again, it's a rough reading of the docs. I barely remember. But let's look at the Cilium command real quick. So Cilium, there it is. Okay, let's see what we got. So Joe, your command was Cilium service list. Service list. Awesome. Okay, that's really, really cool. I love that. I love being able to get on the host and see some kind of more structured output like this. So check this out, everyone. This is super, super sick. Okay, what do we got going on here? 1096.010. So let's figure out what that is. That's probably the service for, okay, here. So if we do a kubectl get services for the namespace kube system, right? Okay. Oh, that's kubedns. Perfect. That's kubedns on top of our 2 pods. So what's so great about this is I can go on the host, because remember, on the host itself, like it's going to resolve what endpoint IP it needs to go to, which is the pod's IP. And as far as like the actual container networking is concerned, that's what it's mostly worried about, right? It's like, tell me what pod you want to go to. I'll shoot this thing through the VXLAN tunnel and make it go there, right? But what we need to do with services is we need to provide a way to go in and abstract that on each host. This happens kind of in this localized manner, as we saw traditionally with kube-proxy and now with BPF. So what we're looking at here, which is great, and yeah, Maddie, you're totally spot on. This is core DNS. I can see here, all right, here's the service IP that's fronting it, and here are the IP addresses that it is using. So that is really, really cool. All right, what other cool stuff does the Cilium CLI give us insight into? BPF. Ooh, policy. Sweet. So Cilium policy list. Cilium policy get. Cilium policy get. Okay. So if I'm thinking of the word policy, right, I'm guessing because I don't have any ingress or egress rules, this is going to be an empty array right now, which is totally, totally fine. So let's go ahead and apply some policy real quick. So if I go into the episodes 103, what else we got here? 103 manifests, workloads. Cool. So let's go ahead and apply. All right, so we're going to apply the, which one's a good one? Deny all ingress is a good one. All right, so deny all ingress is nothing too crazy, just to show you it all real quick, or show you all it. All it's basically going to do is say, hey, traffic that comes into the first pod, which is team A, is going to be blocked. So I'm blocking ingress traffic on that pod. A really quick and easy way that we can look at it is we could do an exec again, and this time go into team B, which is in the org2 namespace. And who had my syntax there? Yeah, service.namespace. Let me copy that. So if I go to team A.service.namespace, oops, curl would be helpful, huh? Great, it kind of hangs up there. So I'm probably blocking if all's going well. So let's go to Cilium and see if we can find that policy now. So again, I'm on my host. I am I in the container anymore? I don't think I am. Did I leave the container? Actually, you know what? Here's what we should do. We should find the container that has it on there and exec into it again. So let's do a get pod for the namespace org1 wide. And this is team A, which is running there. Okay, 10.217. Okay, the IP is that. And it's running on worker node 0. So let's make sure we do this on worker node 0 then. So I need to do my exec command again, which was to do, sorry, let's go back here. Get pods for kube system. I wonder where I'd put my, I messed something up. Okay, so kube system, cool. Let's go do the wide. Let's make sure we get, again, on the Cilium node for this one here, which is no, that's for the masters. This is TXWB. So I'm going to exec into that again, just like you all saw before. So if I exec, all right, let's go ahead and exec into here. And then we will do the namespace of kube system. Cool. Oh, wait, was I still in there? I'm sorry. I was still in there in the upper buffer. Geez. It's the failure of having too many windows open. Okay, so we'll do Cilium policy get. There it is. Pretty cool. So, all right, what do we got here, everyone? We've got a namespace selector, org1. That's cool. We've got the labels in here. I'm trying to figure out how I can discern. So, okay, so this is some cool stuff I can figure out, right? I can know that it's coming from this policy. I can see the namespace it's coming from. That's cool. I wonder if in this view, is there a way for me to figure out like the pods it's impacting? I'm guessing not. Like at this level of like the map lookup, it probably doesn't make, it's probably too intense to like correlate those to pods it impacts, at least on this low level thing, but just thinking out loud in case I'm missing something. But if we do go back to Octant and we go back to team A, check it out. Ingress enforcement is now true. That's really, really cool. So ingress enforcement true, team A. What do we got here? Okay, here we go. So, yes, it's impacting it, and here are the labels. Okay, no, that's the identity labels. Is that the same thing? So identity labels, org1, team A, runs nginx, org1 namespace. Okay, so maybe the policy doesn't show up in here, unless I'm missing something, which is totally fine. It's just it's letting me know on the Cilium endpoint, I do have policy enforced, and I bet there's some way to correlate it to what it's being impacted by. I just don't necessarily know offhand. Okay, that is really, really slick. I love the idea of hopping on the host and using the CLI. Oh, cool. Let me try some of these recommendations I have. So Cilium endpoint list. Oh, cool. Okay. Let's see what we got here, everyone. So let's make it a little bit bigger. Okay, so I see the correlation now. So the endpoint that's being impacted, the labels, okay. Or actually, I guess these are all the endpoints, I should say. But this is kind of like what we're seeing with Octant. So I'm guessing endpoint 127 would be my team A pod, and I can see the enforcement. Yeah, this is such a killer way to troubleshoot, frankly. Like the ability to come in here and just basically have access to what I'm guessing is like in maps and different things inside a BPF, but not having to understand that at all is a really, really, really cool feature. Cilium status. Okay, I heard Cilium status a couple times, and we'll probably move on to Hubble here. So Cilium status. Oh, sick. Okay, cool. So on the host, I can figure out what's going on. Container runtime, Kubernetes version, API. All right, proxy status. Cool. Cluster health. Okay, that is really sweet. So yeah, so the kind of pro tip we learned here is, we started this session off by like looking through IP tables rules and figuring out what's going on, right? But in reality, like it's such a nice approach to be able to go in with a tool like this and figure out what's happening underlying on the specific worker node. That is a really, really cool feature set. Because like, I guess what I'm really trying to say there in talking about that is like, there's two ways that I think you can look at this. One is like the IP tables approach and the implications of it from a performance standpoint. And I totally get that. And there's implications, and you should read information about like the scalability and whether it should matter to you and so on and so forth. But there's a whole nother side, which is just like the experience of using it, interacting, introspecting, understanding what's going on. Now, I'll be the first to admit, if you ask me to help you with anything IP tables related, you're asking the wrong person and you'll be in a lot of pain because I will have no idea how to help you. But that being said, like, it just shows how this model can really help clearly visualize and see what's going on a node. So that is something for someone who doesn't understand IP tables like me as really, really compelling thing. All right, killer. So I think we've talked about services at this point. Maybe what we move on to now, everyone, is let's see if we can deploy, we'll see if we can deploy Hubble real quick and kind of get some views and introspection into this stuff. And then we'll wrap up, and we might not have time to do CNI chaining, but maybe we'll just kind of talk about it at a conceptual level, because that's one that I'm super interested in as well. So let's see if we can get Hubble deployed now, right? So, all right. Those in chat, who's pretty impressed with what we've seen so far? It's really, really cool stuff, huh? I'm really enjoying learning about this. Cool. All right, so let's see if we can get some Hubble set up. So, do I have the Hubble docs? I do. Okay, cool. All right, so Hubble. What do we got going on with Hubble? Actually, when I was looking through the blog posts, there was one on Hubble. Yeah, cool. All right. So I learned about this at KubeCon. I don't know a ton about it, but it's interesting. It looks like a way that you can run an agent called Hubble, and then there will be some higher level construct that you can pull out of that agent. So we're going to look at the Hubble UI today. It also looks like it's got a way for you to start scraping metrics out of Hubble, which is pretty cool for your Grafana and Prometheus setups. So yeah, let's see if we can just get it deployed and kind of look. Oh, here's a screenshot of it. So we should be able to get something that kind of looks like this at a high level. Cool. All right. Yes, shiny. Yay. Cilium looks cool. Larry, I'm overwhelmed too, Larry. I'm with you, man. I'm totally with you. Sorry, you all couldn't see my screen. Sorry for the delay there. So I was looking at the blog post, but I still had the picture open. My bad. Okay, so let's see if we can get Hubble up and running. So I have got the documentation here on GitHub. Yeah, it'll show up in a second, Waleed. Sorry, that was my my snafu from OBS. Okay, so curl, good. Okay, this looks pretty straightforward. The one thing that's going to get us a little bit, we deployed Cilium 1.6 earlier, which is not the end of the world. So what we can do here is, I always get really worried when I am changing CNI plugins. No offense to Cilium folks. I'm not saying you're not capable of doing appropriate cleanup on my hosts, but it freaks me out to no extent. So what I'm going to do here real quick to get Hubble installed, we're going to do a quick kube-adm reset. And I am going to go ahead and reset the entire clusters. Okay, so kube-adm reset. This will just take a sec. We've already got the containers downloaded now, so it will not take very long. Kube-adm reset. All right, and we're going to, oh, this will be cool. We're going to get to look at I think 1.7 is unreleased, right? An unreleased version of Cilium as well. See if we notice any cool stuff. All right, so let's do this thing. So we're going to go ahead and init one more time. Let's init the same way. Hopefully initting without IP tables won't be an issue. Let's give it a shot. So good. We'll kick that off, and then we'll join these two nodes in just a moment. Looks like we got another Helm chart. So here's what we'll do, everyone. We will look at this Helm it produced, the YAML, and we'll diff it against our existing YAML. Now, one thing you might notice that this is missing, right, is it doesn't look like it's got the API server IP and port, which probably means that this is assuming that I am running in kube-proxy mode. I don't have kube-proxy removed. So we're probably going to want to add that to whatever this manifest produce. Feel free to tell me I'm wrong, someone in chat, if so, but I will probably look to add those variables in if I can. So Cilium 1.7, that all looks good. Let's not create it because we want to make some modifications here. All right, templates, cool. All right, this all looks great. So I'm going to join these two nodes down here. Great. Great. All right, copy that up. And we will put it in. Ooh, wait, let's remove that real quick, actually. So I'm going to get rid of the old kube config from our previous cluster. Kube config. Okay, and we are going to paste that in place. Kubectl. Get notes. Are we not ready again? No, we are ready. Interesting. Okay, we'll see if that throws us off at all. I wonder why it would think it's ready already. Okay, this is why I always get scared redeploying CNIs. Okay, we'll see what happens. Who knows? So if I exit out of, actually, let's open another buffer. If I exit out of here, okay, and let's go ahead and do what they say. So episodes 103, we're going to install Hubble. So we'll grab the Cilium template, which looks good. Download Cilium. Oh, wait. Silly me, sorry. Should probably download it first, right? So let's do that. So we'll curl that, look at chat real quick. The Helm options can be combined if you want. The kube-proxy free mode, these Hubble instructions will assume. Okay, cool. Thanks for saying that, Joe. You maybe helped me from tripping over myself here. All right, so we're in there. Let's grab this. Okay, Helm. All right, so I'm going to grab that first one here. And then let's also bring open our old Helm one from before, which was, where was the first Helm? I think it was 1.7. It's probably this one. Yeah, that's it. Okay, cool. So we'll grab that. We'll copy this. I'm going to put it inside of Helm shell, which will be this. And we'll come back in here real quick and combine them in a second. So get out of here. All right. So I'll show you all the commands. So helm.shell, here's what we got going on. So what I was talking about here is these two things, right? So I probably want these two things to be in the way that I generate Cilium. So let's grab those. So again, to Joe's point, I believe node port true is going to make sure we're running in kube-proxy free mode. And then we're going to make sure we include our API server host and port. Once again, we'll put these in here. So let's go ahead and do 192.168.2020. And then for port, we will do 6443. And probably don't need the $signs, huh? Those don't sound like variables. That will maybe possibly get us back to what we had before. Let's hope. So we'll save. Looks good. All right, let's see what we can do now. So I'm just gonna, just for the heck of it, copy this, produce a Cilium YAML for y'all. So let's produce that. Cool. And okay, I think that looks pretty good. So let's do a quick vim diff against the Cilium YAML I have here, which should be 1.7. And then let's go back to Cilium 1.6 and see what the big differences are between the two. Install Kubernetes Cilium YAML. Okay, what do we got here, everyone? So some of these might just be things that have moved around, by the way, but something about monitoring, which probably makes sense. I'm guessing these are maybe important to Hubble. It looks like some changes to what we need as far as the service accounts go, maybe. So ingress resource changes as far as what we need. Custom. Ooh, okay, this is cool. All right, so tell me if I'm wrong here, but if this is a feature that's coming out, I'm really excited about it. So one of the things that I love about some CNI implementations is they will add their own network policy CRD. So I know Cilium has their own network policy CRD, which is great. And usually kind of what this means is like, the kube API, the network policy, it's great. It works for a lot of use cases, but it does have limitations. Like maybe you're trying to do fancier like layer 7 type enforcement, or maybe you're trying to do like these weird expressions that you can't normally do in the standard API. So a lot of vendors like Calico, Cilium, and others will create their own CRD that kind of extends that functionality. And one of the extensions I love seeing is when CNI plugins make a policy type that impacts the entire cluster. Because what I've run into quite a bit is, there's kind of two approaches to this, two ways that you could carve this. One is you could go in and actually, set policy in every namespace. Like say you want to do a default deny all, you can go and add that policy to every namespace that by default nothing is available. But what's awesome for especially an administration team to set cluster-wide policies that you can then poke holes in based on like admission control and stuff inside of the user namespaces. So if these are cluster network policies, or if these are cluster policies that are going to impact basically the entire cluster, I'm very stoked about that. That is really, really awesome. I'm actually hoping someday that maybe Kube will have a model for this in a generic sense for everybody, but this is cool stuff. So Cilium can tell me if I'm off my rocker, and that's not what that's for. Anywho, cluster service is true. We got some new labels, no big deal. Looks like the image pool policy changed. Excuse me. Okay, nothing else too crazy. Aside from some of these new CRDs and stuff, it doesn't look too insane. So let's go ahead and apply this, and let's see what we get. All right. So kubectl, apply, Cilium, YAML. Here we go, everyone. Take two. Let's see if we get this. Oh, that's not good. Probably would be helpful if I exported my manifest or my kubeconfig again. So let's go ahead and do that from 202. Cilium 2, that should probably overwrite it. Kubectl, get nodes. Oh yeah, I need to, don't forget, don't know how contexts work. Okay, so we need to kubectl, get nodes. Okay, it worries me that they're ready. I have no idea why they're ready. But anywho, let's do this. Kubectl, get pods for the namespace cube system. Okay, so core DNS is in the state I'd expect without a CNI. So maybe that ready thing is just a weird nuance to having done this before. So let's go ahead and apply. All right, we will set up a watch for cube system, and fingers crossed, everyone, that 1.7 goes as smooth as 1.6 did. Let's hop into the docs and figure out how to get Hubble while that's being set up. So, okay, good. So we know that monitor aggregation medium is set up. Remember earlier today, we looked at that in the manifest, so that's pretty cool. Install Hubble. Okay, so I'm guessing this installs Hubble. Now the question would be, does this install the agents? Does this install the UI? Or does this install everything? So I'm guessing at a minimum, that's probably everything. So let's grab this. Okay. All right, so it looks like the Cilium stuff is still getting running, which there was a little bit of a delay last time. So let's make sure that it gets up. Okay, we got one healthy. Oh, Dan, you need an extra flag for the UI. Okay, cool. Thanks for saving me there. I'll take that flag when you're ready. Cool. So Cilium's still starting up. Yeah, Alex, I'm with you on the cluster network policies. That is, for big environments, that can be a game changer. It really can. Cool. All right, so we'll see if we can get Hubble up and then talk about some CNI chaining. So. All right, so let's see if I can beat Dan to it maybe. Deploy Hubble, so he's saying we aren't very creative. Okay, I like it. Configure service map UI, is this it? Creative enough for me. Minikube, quick install, deploy Hubble service account. Okay, cool. Or maybe it is the default now. Okay, let's roll with it. We'll be able to. I mean, heck, we can deploy a UI, right? If we can get agents to work, we'll figure out how to deploy a UI. Watch me regret those words deeply in just a moment here. Okay, so a moment ago, I went in and made hubble.yaml. We'll take a quick look at that. Hubble.yaml. Did I make hubble.yaml? Did I run the Helm thing? I don't remember anymore. Git clone. Oh, it's a different repository. Sorry about that, everyone. Okay, so let's go ahead and bring this down. Okay, here's what we'll do. We'll grab the git clone and the CD separately. Let's paste that in place. Cool. And then we will do Hubble. Great, we're in the Hubble repo. Let's run the Helm command again. So Helm template. Okay, failed to download Hubble. Am I in the wrong directory? CD Hubble install Kubernetes. CD Hubble install. Where did I go? So I'm in CD Hubble. CD install. Huh, what did I do wrong here? So I've got hubble.yaml. Very strange. Okay, let's not screw ourselves up. We're going to be super safe here, okay? I probably did something silly. So I'm going to get out of the Cilium repo, and we're going to focus on just our own little Hubble repo so that I don't mess us up here, okay? So let's do a clone and a CD. Cool. All right, that's good. And then we'll do a template again. Oh, I see where I was at. I'm sorry. Yeah, that's silly. Anywho, we have a Hubble definition now. Hubble YAML. Let's see if there's a UI in here. Huh. I don't see anything in the manifest about a UI, everyone. Added to the Hubble template command, set UI enabled true. Enable should just be set UI enabled true. Okay, let's see if that works, Joe. I'll add that to my command. You caught me just before I hit apply, so you may have saved the day. Let's see. Cool. Yeah, so my nano piece of feedback for you. Actually, I guess a dedicated doc for installing Hubble is probably a good idea if they're just going to use the agent for like Grafana or for Prometheus and stuff, but maybe call out in here the UI, I don't know. Anywho, this makes a lot of sense. Cool. So let's go ahead and let's do Helm again. Let's modify it. Let's do what Joe recommended. And if it doesn't work, we can just blame Joe. No problem. So we go over. Cool, everyone. All right, what do you think? Look good? So we'll run that. We'll go into Hubble. We have a UI? We have a UI. Okay, that's awesome. Let's see if it works. So we will do a apply of our friend Hubble.yaml. All right, and then let's do a kubectl. I think I saw that it was in kube system. So we'll watch kubectl get pods for the namespace kube system. All right, Hubble. So we've got an agent on every node. There's our 3 nodes. That makes sense. Looks like we've got a UI here as well. Okay, that's pretty cool. Okay, Hubble's starting up too. That is good news. All right. Cool, we got the UI. Maybe the agents are still starting up, but let's see if we can figure out where the UI is then. So if we do a kubectl get service for the namespace kube system, I'm guessing y'all have a Hubble UI in here. Awesome. Okay. So I could open up a node port. That's one option, but let's keep it simple here. And let's just do a port forward for the Hubble UI in the namespace kube system. And we will do, what port are we on? 12,000. No pods called Hubble UI. Port forward service. Is that how it goes? No pods service found. There's some way to tell it that it's a service. I'm trying to remember. Kubectl port. This is why it's helpful to have Duffy behind your shoulder when you can. What is this? Port forward. Oh, it's the /. Okay. All right, here we go. Service Hubble UI. Cool. All right, so theoretically, if we go to this port, hey, we got a UI. Pretty cool. Okay. Namespaces, kube system, kube public, node. Cool. Okay, what do we got going on here, everyone? So, all right, this is cool. So, okay, first impressions. Let's just kind of start there, I guess, before I get overwhelmed. I'm looking in kube system. Why are my other... my other namespaces aren't there because they've been deleted. Let's do this real quick, too. Let's go ahead and bring our other workloads back. So I'm going to go into episodes again, 103, workloads, manifests, workloads. Cool. And we're gonna see if we can actually check Hubble out live here. So if we do kubectl apply, what was it again? It was team A, right? Team A. Oh man, y'all are gonna hate me after you see me switch these contexts manually too many times. Team A, team B. Okay, so that's pretty good. We got team A and team B back up. If I go to Hubble, I've got, there's my namespaces. Okay, cool. So here's the deal. What do we got here inside a kube system? So it looks like we've got kubedns, which totally makes sense. It looks like it shows when traffic is egressed out to the world. I don't see any arrows coming in, so I don't know if it shows traffic coming in from the world, because I would think when I call my API server, that would maybe show up. Maybe? I don't know, actually. I don't know the answer to that. So kubedns, ingress, egress, ingress, egress. So maybe the locks mean whether there's policy, I'm guessing. Okay, and this is cool. So I can see that if I click on 53 UDP, I can see kubedns sent a request to the world for 53 UDP. So this is probably when it needed to do some type of external lookup on a DNS record that it did not know about. So that all makes sense. Okay, org1, org2, no data. Okay, so this probably then means, and this is probably what the timer means, is it's probably only collecting data on active traffic, which makes sense. How would it know that things route otherwise, unless there was actually traffic to look at? So let's send some traffic through. If we go back and exec, so I'm going to go back into team A, the team A pod, and I'm going to once again send some traffic to team B. So this will be curl team B dot service dot, and you know what's funny? I think last time I literally typed in namespace, which wouldn't have worked anyways now that I think about it. Anywho, instead of namespace, I will put in org2. I think this is the syntax. Maybe not. I have it wrong again. What did I do wrong? Team B, curl, service, org2. Okay, forget it. I'm going to go in and get the endpoint again. Get service, namespace, org2. There it is. Works for me. Namespace before service, of course. Let's try that. Maybe I can solve this in my brain permanently. So team B, org2, service. Hey, we got traffic. Okay, so team A and team B, two different namespaces, they're communicating. Let's go to Hubble and see what we got here. So update. Okay, so it updates on a countdown, or I just hit refresh and that seems to have worked. Sweet, this is exactly it. So I've got my ingress, I've got my egress. We can see here that team A egress to team B. I don't know if there's complexities around this, but what could be really cool is if I knew the namespace perhaps that team B was in. I don't see. Oh no, the names. Okay, so the namespace is in the label here. It looks like the UI just doesn't like wrap the external thing yet, maybe, if I'm reading this right. Okay, so that's cool. The UI makes sense. Let's, you know what, just for the heck of it though, let's curl out. So if I curl to google.com, I'm thinking I should see an external call, right? So if I refresh, there it is. Sweet. So I've got ingress to the world, or sorry, egress to the world up there. Team A, pretty cool. Team B, pretty cool. Okay, yeah, it's showing me the flows. That's pretty sweet. We'll add some policy and see if it impacts whatever these locks are in a moment. Cool. Let's see here. So we've got, okay, so this is the flow for everything, right? So we can see the source pod, we can see the destination it went to. So this is clearly my google.com request, right? Because it needed to send a request to core DNS. I guess what's interesting about the UI though, is when I was in Kube's system, the core DNS traffic showed up. And in this view, it doesn't show me calling core DNS. And I wonder if there's a reason for that. Nonetheless, so I'm going out to core DNS, I'm getting the DNS record, and then there's where I call Google. And then prior to that, you can see team A called out to, where did I call team B originally? The order or something maybe seems weird here unless I'm looking at it wrong. But team A called team B. So you can see where I actually called team B right there. That looks good. You can see some of my DNS lookups inside of here as well, which, yeah, again, I use the service IP. So I suppose it did go to core DNS if it didn't have it cached to any degree. Yeah, this is all really cool. So obviously if I was doing real world stuff, I'd probably have to filter. I wonder, the Cilium folks in the chat, what's like the performance impact on running this? Is there any at all, or is that Hubble daemon just kind of like basically sweeping stuff up as it gets it, and the introspection doesn't have a massive overhead? I'd be super curious to know, like, is this an easier way to put it is this something I can just keep on whenever, or do you only recommend having this on when I'm trying to like troubleshoot things essentially? So overall, this is super cool to play around with though. Oh, okay. It looks like it has HTTP feature sets, so that's pretty cool. HTTP is interesting though, because I'm thinking, I don't think it would know about HTTP given the nature of the fact that we're operating on a different layer. So if I come back here and I curl, Actually, I know it doesn't because it's blank. So it doesn't have like the path or anything or any of the statuses. Let's see in the docs how to make HTTP work. Oh, dad jokes. Where is HTTP? Configure the service UI. Oh, wait, it was literally right there. Enable HTTP visibility. Okay. In order for Cilium to gain HTTP visibility, it needs to route the traffic to a managed Envoy proxy. Okay. So Cilium folks, help me out here. Does this mean I need to have an Envoy sidecar with all of my workloads? Kind of like in the Istio model to some degree, or like a service mesh model where you package a sidecar in, because I obviously don't have that today, so I'm guessing I wouldn't be able to get HTTP visibility. For the following Cilium network policy will redirect traffic of all pods on port 80 to the HTTP. Oh, maybe they run it. That's interesting. So Cilium network policy, HTTP visibility. Huh. That is interesting. Cilium has Envoy embedded in it. Only see packets if you have. Oh, okay. So I see. Okay. So it's not about putting sidecars with your workloads. It's about putting this policy in place, which then tells it to go to that proxy. And then Hubble can read what's happening at that level, since that proxy operates on layer 7. If that's a fair summary, let me know. So this is, by the way, this is an example of one of those Cilium network policies. So in Kubernetes, you have the network policy API, and then in Cilium, they have their own extension of that. I think I remember that you're not supposed to mix the two from back in the day. You can tell me if that's still correct. You're supposed to use one or the other ideally, but this time it looks like we'd want to use that network policy. Transparently redirect to Envoy. What's confusing me about this manifest is, how does this know to send to Envoy? Like, I get the from aspects, the from port 80, but what in this manifest is saying go to Envoy or go to the Cilium baked Envoy? Unless there's just some magic here or I'm overlooking something, which could be possible. Let's try it. Let's see what happens. So if I go in to here and let's get our manifest ready here for a moment. All entities, cool. Okay, so it looks like Sergey rules HTTP is working. I don't know why the chat says some of your comments were held for review. I have no idea why. Okay, cool. So, all right, I'll try it. Let's see if this works. So if I do okay, let's get this open here. So if I do a vim for HTTP introspection YAML, this will be a Cilium policy, which is going through, and my editor's upset just because it's a CRD. It doesn't understand it. Cool. All right, let's see what we get here. So kubectl apply HTTP intro YAML. Cool. Yeah, that's what I thought too, Dan. Sorry, I'm having to click to it. Apparently Google thinks you're saying terrible things because I have to keep approving the things you're saying for some reason. But yeah, that makes sense to me. So nothing would go to Envoy by default. If you put this in place, which makes a lot of sense, it will then shoot through Envoy, which will then allow that introspection that we're looking for here. So you'll want to apply it to tenant A or tenant B namespace. Oh, because it's okay. Good call. Thank you for that. So let's apply this to the namespace org1. And heck, we'll just do it in org2 as well. I guess in kube system, it probably didn't make a lot of sense. So let's just make sure. So if I do a kubectl get Cilium network policy for the namespace org1. Great. Okay, we have HTTP visibility in. So let's see what we can do here, everyone. So if I do a exec again, let's send some traffic to Google. We'll send some traffic to Team B. And let's go back to Hubble. And if I refresh, oh, there it is. We got it. Very cool. Very cool. Check it out. So for Team B, you can see I did a get for 200 and then 0 milliseconds on that. Okay, cool. This is really sweet. Okay, so same question, which I think you probably answered in chat, but there's so much chat now, I'm not sure where I left off. this feature obviously routes, it changes the data path effectively, right? So is it fair to assume that this is not something you would run all the time? I'm guessing the models vary a lot, right? Because if you're running Istio, you probably already got to some degree something like this because you're introspecting the sidecars that go with all the containers. But I'd be curious what your stance is there. If you click on a flow, it will show you the details. Okay, let's click on one. Ah, sweet. Okay, cool. So flow details, when it was seen, forwarding status, to endpoint, source endpoint labels. Ah, cool. So I know the source information, IP address, the destination. That's really sweet. Oh, look at, and the HTTP data, because I introspected that. That is really, really sick. Huh. Good job. That is cool. Dig it. Policies. Ah, hey, check it out. So the policy is inside of here. Now here's something we haven't tried. Let's wrap up Hubble with this. Unless Cilium people, if there's anything else you think I should click on, let's wrap up Hubble with this. Let's put a policy in place. Let's block some traffic, and let's see what shows up inside of this interface now. Sound good? So if we go back to terminal and, okay, where are we at, Josh? Where are we at? So we'll exit out. We will edit oh no, we're in workloads already. Perfect. So let's do, okay, so here's what we're going to do, everyone. Let's apply the deny all ingress policy. Reminder, this blocks all ingress traffic to org1, okay? So if we do a kubectl apply for deny all ingress, that looks good. So we've applied that policy. All right, so first things first, let's go back to the browser. Let's refresh here. Okay. So first question that I'd have for you all. Today, does policies only show Cilium CRD policies? Remove, oh wait, Dan just said something. People running HTTP visibility continuously, though typically for selected workloads. Okay, that makes sense. So in their doc, I also saw that, by the way. If you want to turn this on, you might not just want to turn it on for every namespace in your cluster, but they do have a cool model for that, which looked like this right here. So I'm guessing that might be what he's talking about, where you can add this for just certain workloads. Remove the HTTP visibility policy before denying. Ah, yes. Oh, they should show both Cilium and Kate's policy. So what's the stance on that then? Like, is it just generally recommended you don't mix the two, but technically this should show both? It seems like, Dan, if I read your message right, Dan, you're implying that I should delete this to see the other policies maybe. But maybe you can clarify there and help me out. For now, we'll just see what happens anyways. So let's go ahead and exec. Cool. Let's curl. Oh, wait, no, we got to go to team B, right? So we got to exec into the team B pod. Team B for org2. Cool. Let's make sure this blocks real quick. So if I curl for team A, org1 service, it went through. Did I ever apply that other, that change? Let's see. So apply unchanged. Interesting. I wonder why it would go through okay. If I'm going from my, let's look at this one more time. I'm going from team B to team A, where the ingress should be denied. Oh, I see what you're saying, Dan. Okay, sorry. Okay, so the HTTP thing is it's rerouting the traffic, right? Because it's going through there. So the mixing thing is a totally different concern. If I'm rerouting the data path, how these policies impact things is different. That totally makes sense. So let's go ahead and delete that real quick. So if I do delete HTTP intro, now we should see what we expect. So let's go here. Let's curl. It still worked for me. Very strange. Let's see what I got here. So now the policy should be gone, I'm hoping. Oh, then it's namespace scoped. Sorry, everyone. Okay. It's namespace scoped. All right. Here we go. So we'll get this right someday. Don't you all worry. Someday we will have this working. So we'll do org1 and org2. Okay. And then let's exec to org2. All right, fingers crossed, everyone. Is it going to work? Whew, I think it worked. All right, let's see what we get. So we'll go back here. We'll refresh. Check it out. We got it. So team B was dropped. So the source pod was team B. We were targeting, this is such a great way to troubleshoot stuff, right? We were sourcing team B. We called out to team A, and then we failed. I still don't see the policies for one reason or another. Org1 should have this policy inside of it. So I wonder if maybe it is just showing the CRDs for some reason, or maybe I did something wrong. But nonetheless, that's super cool. So, all right, I think we have looked pretty well now at Hubble. So this is a really cool feature set. Actually, another thing I did want to ask while we have Cilium people here too is, it looks like, I'm curious what these little locks mean. Do these represent policy, or what are they supposed to represent? Because obviously I've applied a policy, but it doesn't look like it's changed much. Oh, here's a cool thing to look at too, everyone. You can see with the HTTP enabled, I actually see the paths on the UI, and I can see the GET response. So that's pretty cool. You can see how, if you're traversing through that Envoy proxy, how you can go a layer deeper on layer layer 7. So that's super cool. All right, all. So I want to wrap up with just one conceptual item around Cilium, because I don't want this to go too long. I know a lot of you are already staying later than you expected. And that is just a quick note on CNI chaining. Honestly, if we deployed CNI chaining, I don't think it'd be that amazing, because there wouldn't really be much to see. But what's cool is with everything we've talked about so far, we can bring that into the concept of CNI chaining, I think. So let's see if we can find that real quick. I think I had it bookmarked, but let's just type in CNI chain and see if anything comes up in the doc. CNI chaining. All right, awesome. So are these dedicated guides? Okay, perfect. So let's kind of review what we've talked about so far, right? So we know that from a Cilium perspective, they make one of the big compelling kind of use cases of it is this use of BPF to do this kind of routing type concerns that we've talked about. So we talked about the idea of services, which to some degree can be thought of as load balancing, right? Balancing. Okay. And then we've also talked about net policy that can get enforced on that level, also moving that out of the kind of IP tables mode that it would normally work inside of, right? And then let's see if there's anything else. Advanced features like encryption. So maybe there's an encryption feature set. I don't really know as much about that one. I haven't really looked into it. But service, net policy. What else do we got here? Let's see. Cilium attached BPF programs, network devices. Cool. So the idea that I'm kind of getting at here with this CNI chaining model, and why I think it can be kind of a compelling thing, is maybe there is some technical reason why you want to use a different CNI plugin. So as an example, let's consider Calico. So Calico has a couple different routing modes. Okay, it has IP and IP. Okay, and it has VXLAN, and it has I always want to call it direct, but I think it's called native, where you basically don't encapsulate. So let's just call it that. So, this is a super random use case, but let's say your company's already super heavily invested in the IP and IP mode that Calico uses, which, as I was talking about earlier, you can actually mix native and IP and IP, so that only when you're crossing subnets you're doing that. And also, you have reasons like maybe you're using the BGP functionality that's built into it to talk to your top of rack switches, right? So your top of rack switches, so that you can essentially set up a pod network in your environment. Now, I'm not saying you couldn't do architectures like this perhaps with Cilium. I honestly don't know the answer to that. But let's say that you're pretty stuck in that model, but you really want to take advantage of let's do a different color here so we're clear. You really want to take advantage of all of these things that we've been talking about, at least service and service load balancing and netpol. So as I would understand it, the idea would be is you can go in and do things to apply Cilium in a mode where it's not handling the core routing concerns. I don't know if that's a good way to put it, but like it's not the thing moving the packets, right? Like you can still delegate that to Weave, Calico, or whatever. But those other things we talked about, like the network policy enforcement that all happens through BPF, the service mapping functionality that happens inside of there as well, which theoretically would scale significantly better than like what a kube-proxy or otherwise would. You can deploy it in this mode and basically have it work alongside your existing CNI plugin, taking advantage of those particular things. So in the case of Calico, they've got some specific settings that you can put on for the CNI configuration. So it looks like, I'm trying to see if there's anything super key here to point out, but you're still using, okay, here's a better way to put it. You're still using Calico for IPAM, right? But inside of here, you're actually going to be able to use Cilium for some of these other things that we've been talking about. So they've got docs, it looks like, for using Cilium alongside AWS, Azure, Calico, WeaveNet, and some others as well. So, Cilium folks, you can tell me if I did that feature justice, but I think that's kind of one thing to keep in mind. Like you can kind of forklift Cilium into your environment, especially if you're doing something net new and some of these like approaches are compelling to you, you could use it. But also you can have it kind of run alongside some other IPAM and CNI functionality that you're kind of already bought into for one reason or another. So overall, that's a pretty cool thing. See if there's anything else in chat that we want to cover. So Weave support IPsec. Our commercial support setup requires us to use the NSXT CNI plugin. Cool. So just some comments on the different setups of the plugins. I don't see anything else that's really big. All right, everybody. So in summary then, we talked about a lot of really cool stuff, and I would argue it kind of worked, which is super awesome. So we talked about the kube-proxy replacement and the CRD backend. We talked about deploying Hubble, looked at some of the feature sets. And while we didn't actually implement it, we at least looked at CNI-chaining to get an idea for how we can leverage some of that Cilium functionality on top. So I guess that's about it. I just want to thank you all so much for joining us during this session. Selfishly, I learned an insane amount about how some of this stuff works. So that is really cool. Those of you who are still hanging out and still in chat, if you could also just give a quick thanks to the Cilium folks who joined us. We would just be kind of guessing about stuff if they weren't there to give some more context. So we really appreciate you all taking time out of your day to come join us and talk about all these awesome feature sets. But yeah, that does it for this TGIK on Cilium. I hope this take two was super helpful to you. Don't forget to check out our HackMD for some references to talks and things that we've discussed. And be sure to check out Project Cilium and see if it's something that you can play around with in your environments. Until the next time, thanks again, everybody. See ya.